Hey, it's Lane from LainTCG, and today I have a pretty short video compared to normal. I've been having, some stuff going on, so we're just going to do a quick one today, and I know it might be quick by my standards, which means it could potentially be over long, but, regardless, I wanted to get something out, and today I basically just have an update for my tier list, which you've all potentially seen, but basically I just wanted to talk about 7 Great Demon Lords because it's doing a lot better than I expected it to, and I think a lot of people expected it to, going into the EX7 meta. So let's just get into that. Basically, Demon Lords, in my estimation, was going to be about middle of tier 2, maybe a little bit lower than middle. While the new Shoto added support to the deck, I personally didn't think it added enough to make it properly competitive out of its niche Mega Zoo sort of status, but I was incorrect. While it hasn't had the most showing in the EX7 meta overall, the few events that it's been in, it's topped pretty highly, and it's also had pretty excellent showings for the deck overall. It took a few weeks after EX7 came out for us to see lists utilizing Shoto as new support for the deck, but since then the strategy has seen some pretty strong results, and while I still don't think it's a tier 1 deck, it's definitely not a tier 1 deck because tier 1 decks have consistent game plans that it executes extremely efficiently and defines the meta. It is a strong and favorable 1.5 deck. I think that it's only 1.5 though because of how inconsistent and high roll it is by design, but we're going to get into a little bit of what it's been doing. So basically we're just going to talk about the results now. Since we've seen Shoto incorporated into the lists through Eggman events starting on around the 30th of September and Carta Magica's September online regionals, there's been 9 events that we have records for. It took a few weeks actually after EX7 came out for it to top, but as soon as people started using Shoto, which took I think 2 weeks after the set released, 2 or 3, it's been doing pretty okay, at least in line with other tier 1.5 decks. Weirdly, it's done better than Fenrir Lugumon Takabikazuchi, but in the 9 events that have happened since then, it's been in top cut in 5 of the events and has had 10 top cut performances across those different events. Of those top cuts, we've also had 2 first places, which is incredibly surprising, and 5 top 4 placements. And for this, just for full awareness, I have counted regionals. There's technically a box event that had sufficient enough people for it to count for Eggman events, and I'm going off of Eggman events website. You should check it out. They have a lot of the top lists for regionals, store regionals, box events. So basically, it has seen pretty decent numbers. Overall, in regionals and store regionals, it's been represented in the top cut in 55% of the events, which is pretty decent numbers for a deck that I personally thought was tier 2, but it turns out it's doing a bit better than we thought. And it has been a top 10 deck, or a top deck 10 out of 128, out of the top decks, sorry, it has shown up in top cut 10 out of 128 decks that were represented in those 9 events for about a 7% representation of the top cut meta. So it's done fairly well. Out of the 10 that it got, half of them were top 4. So it's done really well. I think the deck is just kind of overall a little bit more inconsistent than you'd want it to be. But we're going to talk about Shoto now because you're probably aware Shoto is incredibly good for a lot of different decks. Specifically, he enables, Mother Shoto combo, but we're going to talk about it now. So the only thing that the deck really got in terms of new support is the Shoto Cosma from EX7, but honestly, it seems to have been enough to make the deck more consistent and make it consistently hit its game plan more often. Just so we're talk about what it does in case you don't know. For 3 play cost, start of your main phase, if your opponent has a Digimon, you gain 1 memory. So it has the Seeker's standard effect. And then on the end of your turn, by suspending this tamer, one of your Digimon gains piercing and blocker until the end of your opponent's turn. The Vortex Warrior's Claws does not matter for this, but basically you use him to suspend him to give whatever Demon Lord you like Mega Zoot out that turn blocker, which helps you stay alive longer. Demon Lord's greatest weakness is that you need to delay the game long enough to make Ogudo come online for the win. You can technically win through other methods, but it's not nearly as common, right? Because you can't keep stuff around on the board. And while Digimon Emperor has always helped with the early slowdown, Shoto is now a piece that helps all game long in slowing down your opponent's game plan by giving you blockers to, keep things from getting in. While it isn't searchable in the deck, if you get to it, being able to make any card in the deck a blocker on your end of turn makes it easier to keep your security healthier while you wait to mill the correct pieces and get names under your gate. And it also makes Sistermons and Porcupamons not just dead cards once they hit the field. As much as Porcupamon, when it dies, will do something as well, for that like turn rotation where it's just sitting on the board on your opponent's turn, it doesn't do very much. And now Shoto will allow it to block for you one time, which again keeps you healthier and facilitates your game plan overall. And we're going to talk about 2 deck lists. I'm not going to go super in depth with them, but I wanted to show them behind me in case you're interested in playing the deck and practicing. I'm going to talk about Zake 5's list first. If you are frequent in the online Digimon community, you probably know Zake. I know Zake because I technically help out in DCC, Digimon Competitive Community, one of the discords for like playing in online events, and Zake is one of the owners and I help moderate there. But yeah, so I just wanted to give 2 examples of updated lists, both topped at the recent Dugout Store Regionals. We're going to start with Zake, who, again, is a friend of mine, owns a shop. If you're interested in singles, he's pretty good at that as well, and he packages things well. This is not to advertise for him, but, we're just going to talk about it because he did get here. Basically, his list doesn't use Porcupamon. That's been frequently used to out floodgates like Chikurimon that make the deck unable to do its job, as well as Sistermons for card draw, to focus on the Demon Lords and Tamer tech. Basically, this deck runs 2 Digimon Emperors, which we've seen a bit less since the Ukamon limit, but is still incredibly good in this deck and decks overall, especially with decks that need setup turns. And it also runs 3 Shoto Kazuma for the blockers. Everything else is fairly standard. Raremon is a great draw piece. All of the Demon Lords and everything you see are fairly standard. It's just a pretty nice deck, but Shoto's adding a lot to it. The one thing that's separate from all of the other ones for this is not having the Porcupamon or the Sistermon for extra, like getting rid of floodgates and card cycling, but you don't really need it so much if you're going into things that mill off the top to get your names in the trash. So it's an interesting deck. If you're interested in playing, I would recommend this list. It is pretty nice. I'm going to talk about the next list that topped the same event, got first place, so that you can see something that's slightly different and has more different sorts of techs. I should mention it now because I don't mention it later. Most standard Demon Lord lists are running 3 Shoto Kazuma. This deck is no different, but you can run more or less depending on the techs that you're putting into your deck. Like the next list runs less. So we're going to talk about Inferno and his list. Specifically, he topped the Dugout Store Regional with this Demon's Lord deck, which has interesting tech options in it. While most of the list is fairly standard, it runs 1 less Shoto than we're seeing lately. Most are running 3, this runs 2, and it slims down on Belphemon specifically to 1 copy each and 1 copy less of Rise, so it's running 3 Rise of the 7 Great Demon Lords to add in some tech picks that are interesting. Mako is the first pick that I noticed for this deck, which is not standard, at least in my viewing of the deck. Basically, Mako works as a slightly better analog youth. Searches the top 3 cards, and you can add a yellow or purple Digimon card and trash everything else. And it refunds you 1 memory when you play purple-yellow Digimon, like Loosemon Chaos Mode. So if you have to hard slam, it also gets later value, but it does help you mill through your deck a little bit faster and get a piece that you need in your hand, which is helpful. And then we also have BT3 Mastamon, which I know that people have run, but is not something that you see too often. And basically, BT3 Mastamon, when you Digivolve into it, trashes the top card of each player's security, and then plays out a level 4 or less yellow or purple Digimon. In this case, it can either grab the Loosemon EX6, the yellow one, or a Porcupamon for removal. So it's nice. It just moves things out. Everything else about the list is fairly standard. So again, this is another one that you can try if you want to get into the deck. It's just here for, demonstrating what this deck is doing at the moment. And that's mostly it. We're just going to wrap up. The deck is doing better than it was. With the new help, it seems like this deck is still mildly healthy. I wouldn't put it at the top of tier 1.5, even though it has better results than a handful of them, mostly because it's kind of high rolly, right? I would put it somewhere in the middle of tier 1.5 now with data. Even with the boost, it's only making up about 7% of the top cut for the meta, though it does have higher representation than Fenrilugumon Takumi Kazuchi in top 4s, and 1 more appearance in top cut than it as well. So what Fenrilugumon has 9 top cut appearances, and I don't think any top 4s. Meanwhile, this has got top 4 a handful of times, half of the times it's been represented in top cut. So take that as you will. It just has difficulties by design because of the way that Megazoo decks work in general. It's kind of a high roller deck that relies on milling specific cards and names fast enough, as well as it supporting cards like Shoto and Digimon Emperor and all of those things not being searchable or recurrable. It has issues that keep it out of tier 1, but it is a strong tier 1.5 deck. You could put it anywhere from the middle to the top of tier 1.5, depending on your personal preferences. It's a fun deck if you're looking at purple high roll, though if it's something that you want to get into playing, unfortunately the Loosemon Chaos modes are kind of expensive at the moment, and they're only going to get more expensive next set because we're getting all the Loosemon X stuff. Also, just so you know, this deck will get a boost next set from Loosemon X, because that effect is pretty busted during Special Booster 2.0 early next month, so if you're interested in getting into the deck, it will just get better. Definitely there's going to be much more representation for things like Velgarmon Loop and Lord Nightmon, but, take that as you will. If you're interested in this, or Megazoo decks in general, it's a great choice. Please like and subscribe, and share with your community or friends who are looking to get into the competitive scene, or are interested in Demon Lords and how they're doing competitively. My Twitch and Twitter is LainTCG. On Twitch, I play Digimon when I'm testing decks, and also I play Tekken if you're interested in fighting games. My model on the right here is by Bia Bigshot, or at Arabiadho on Twitter, and also Blue Sky, because Twitter keeps creating problems. My cursor model is by VeniVidiVT, my friend, which I use when I'm doing deck testing and stuff on Twitch. She's on Twitter and VGen if you're interested in her content. My banner is by Yo-Yums on Twitter, and my logo is by Pinkybird on Twitter and VGen. That's about it. Again, this is just a short one for me. I know it's almost 15 minutes, but I think most of you are used to my videos being 45 minutes to an hour now, so short by my standards. Thank you for showing up. Hope you have a nice day, and good luck at your locals.